Good evening, everybody. My name is Alexander Greig. I am at the class of 2022 in the MS Biology Zoo Science program. Today, I want to present to you the pygmy loris, or Xanthonycticebus pygmaeus. I suppose it's pygmaeus. My Latin is terrible. So these little cuties are some of my favorite primates. Being a primatologist myself, it was inevitable that I was going to present to you all another primate. So these guys are small, non-lemur prosimian primates. They range between 0.8 to 1 pound, very small, which is why they're called the pygmy slow loris. They have very short or absent tails, short brown, orange, yellow fur. They have large eyes and round heads with a tapetum lucidum that will enhance the collection of light in near darkness because they are nocturnal. And their ears have no hair and are almost completely hidden by their fur. And they are considered endangered by the IUCN. So getting on to their taxonomy and phylogeny, they are of the class Mammalia, order Primates or Primata, and family Lorisidae. So we see that they split roughly 11 million years ago from the Loris family, and this is collaborated by karyotypic, morphological, and behavioral data. They are currently found only in the Southeast Asian countries of Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. The historical range is not known because we only recently started to study these primates. I believe study of Lorisidae only began in approximately 1994, which, considering after the Vietnam War and everything, we haven't had many forays into this dense jungle habitat. Speaking of which, the habitat. So they primarily reside in dense evergreen rainforest. Of course, this area of the world is being heavily deforested and used for farming cash crops. So luckily, the slow loris has been able to make its way into other types of forests like bamboo thickets and farms, and seems to be doing relatively well. So one of my favorite things about these guys is they are obligate exudavivorous primates, which is a fancy way of saying they have to eat tree sap. Other studies have shown that while the majority of their diet consists of these saps and exudates, another large part of their diet comes from fruits, arthropods, flowers, fungi, bamboo, and sometimes small reptiles. There's also been birds and eggs have been documented. So if you see down here to the left, this is a picture of not a pygmy slow loris, but the Nycticebus koyukang, which is a close relative. But they have the same dentition. So at the front of the jaw, you'll see a collection of sharp little teeth that are facing forward out of the jaw, and this is called a tooth comb. This tooth comb allows for the loris to dig into the tree and gouge it. So by making these little wounds in the trees release sap in order to close these wounds, and this is what the loris feeds on. Now, this is advantageous because in the habitat that the loris lives in, food is very seasonal. So fruits and insects for a good portion of the year are not available. So so by being an exudivorous primate, they have a food source throughout the year, which will provide them with carbohydrates, a little bit of protein, and water. One thing to note that this is actually one of the few primates that are exudivorous in relation. That'd be the marmosets and callitrichids that are in South America, which are very, very far removed on the phylogeny from Lorisidae. It's just really kind of interesting. One of my favorite fun facts about the loris, and one of the reasons I chose it, was because it is the only venomous primate. The loris has a small gland on the ventral side of its elbow that will secrete a toxin, a very smelly toxin. And what happens is when the loris licks itself or licks that patch, its teeth will become coated with that toxin, and it will then bite in whatever it is trying to bite. And so this is supposedly very painful, and it takes a very long time to heal. Now they did some studies on the composition of this toxin, and they found that it's very closely related to cat allergens, which means for some people, like this poor guy on the right, if you are allergic to cats, can be deadly. He did survive, but he did go into anaphylactic shock while in the field and had to get an EpiPen injection. Does not sound fun. And as you can see, the poor little guy on the left, these wounds are typically made to conspecifics. It is not much of a defensive mechanism against predators, or it's not much of an anti-predator strategy. It is more of a social defense. So there are two theories. Is one that the loris does not use this as a defense mechanism on the spot, so they don't see another loris and lick their patches and coat their teeth and get ready for battle. They are just always spreading that gland around, because that gland, while it does have this toxin in it, has also been found to carry a lot of odor chemical signals that they think are used for olfactory communication between lorises. This might indicate territory, or it might indicate ovulatory status. We're not sure yet, but when loris do come into contact, they do fight and severely wound each other with this toxin. Oh, looks like something got wrong in my formatting here, but my second fun fact is females typically give birth during the winter months in the wild, and more often than not give birth to twins. This is another strange coincidence, if you can call it that. I'm sorry, it's strange that this is a shared characteristic with marmosets, again, the callitrichids. We don't know why. It is one of the characteristics that led to Xanthonycticebus being characterized as its own genus, away from the other slow lorises. Because the other slow lorises are only monoovulatory, like most primates. Fun fact number 3, lorises may use ultrasonic sound waves for communication. So these really high-pitched sounds allow for for slow lorises to communicate and being nocturnal, if they were screaming all the time in the middle of the night, they would get eaten very easily. So by having their own sort of secret radio channel, they can communicate to each other without alerting nearby predators. Now we're going to get into the sad parts. The reasons for endangerment. Lorises, one of the big reasons that they are so heavily endangered is because they're used for traditional medicines in Asia. Now, this is not something new, and it's not only the loris's problem. There's many species across the world that are having this problem, but for them, it's rather sad. As you can see, they are usually poached, and then they will dry the carcasses out, and then sold in a store for they'll make a tonic out of these dried bodies, which is rather disgusting, but it's the most commonly requested animal from traditional medicine stores in Cambodia's capital. It's used as a tonic for women after childbirth. It's supposed to give strength back to a woman. It's used for the treatment of sexually transmitted diseases, which is also gross. And then it's used for minor ailments like stomach problems, healing wounds, and broken bones. And then the really big problem here is the illegal pet trade. It's been, we've all, or most of us have probably seen the videos of a loris getting tickled. It's not funny to the loris. It throwing its arms up like that is actually a defensive posture. And because people see these videos and they think they're so cute, they want one, so they find one illegally. One of the most common species in the international pet trade, and I believe the most commonly found for sale on illegal online trade and pet shops. The city's data showed Japan is the biggest culprit here, and they import more slow lorises than any other country, about 633 of them between 1985 to 2013. Also, during this time period, the price of a loris has almost more than doubled. So you see there's demand, and as supply dwindles, the price will go up. So population viability. I wish I had more better news to tell you, but these little guys, there's only 43 in North American collections, 86 in Europe, 62 in Asia. These are registered institutions through the Species 360, the Zoological Information Management System. So there are more, but these are all that we have from supposedly accredited institutions. There are at least 79 individuals in rescue facilities throughout Vietnam, Laos, Thailand, China, the United Arab Emirates, and Japan. Now, these aren't great numbers. 43 individuals in North America, you only have so many generations that you're going to be able to breed before you run into inbreeding problems. Even if we were to trade animals or genetic material between North America, Europe, and Asia, that problem is going to come sooner than later. Another problem is that they are incredibly difficult to breed in captivity. We do not have enough information as of yet on the behavioral and husbandry management of these animals. And because they are nocturnal and they live in dense rainforests, they're very difficult to study and figure out what we're doing wrong. A lot of people, myself included, think a lot of it has to do with diet. Even with marmosets in captivity, which I do work with at my institution, we don't really understand how to provide the necessary diet that would mimic what they are getting in the wild. These, because they're exudivorous, we don't have just a ready supply of sap-bearing trees that you can put into an enclosure. It's not feasible. So we are doing our best to come up with substitutions. And for marmosets, it's working relatively well, but for Lorisidae, it is not working well at all. There was one paper that showed that the diet that we were giving lorises in captivity was causing a lot of tooth decay because we were feeding them too much fruit and high sugar items, like Zupreme and other acacia gum, mostly just the commercially available exudates, which is just not, it's not nutritionally complete. So on to the good news. There are recovery efforts to try and bring these populations back. The Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden, in conjunction with the Endangered Primate Rescue Center, or the EPRC, began in 2017 to support the reintroduction of 2 pygmy slow lorises and 2 slow lorises to increase the wild population in the Kuk Fong National Park, which, as you can see from this picture, is beautiful. Now this funding, they are simply providing the funds for this work to be done at the national park. Now this will also include funding for post-release monitoring and data collection to get a better understanding of these animals, which of course will help with our management here back home. Now the AZA is also has another project occurring that began last year in 2021, and they are looking at the social behavior and vocal communication in zoo-housed pygmy slow lorises and the implications for their reproductive success. So they're hoping to look at and characterize the vocalizations and the social behaviors of pygmy lorises so they can make better decisions, which will hopefully lead to more reproductive success, because from what I gather, is we're having a lot of problems with socializing animals. Putting animals together does not ensure that they're going to make babies, and sometimes they will just outright fight and damage or kill the other. So having a good understanding of how we can better socialize these animals will allow us to make more babies, which is always a good thing. Now, my favorite recovery effort, the Little Fireface Project, started in 2011, actually started in 1994 under another umbrella project, but became its own independent project in 2011. It's run by Professor Anna Nekaris. She's a professor in anthropology and primate conservation at Oxford Brookes University. Now, this project is huge. They have many postdocs and research assistants out in the field and back home, or in England, and they are doing their best to study the ecology of all lorises. They study pygmy lorises, the Javan slow loris, slender lorises, all of the lorisidae. They take what they find, they publish many papers. You'll notice most of my citations at least have Nekaris somewhere in them, because she is the queen bee of Lorisidae. Now, they also, while they're out in the field, they go out into the local communities and they attempt to educate people about why they shouldn't be making tonics out of primates, because I don't know why that takes that much convincing, but it does. And so by doing that, they also go in and they document how many animals they see for trade. And they will publish those findings as well because the poachers are sometimes better at finding them than researchers are. There's nothing we can do about it once they are caught by poachers, unfortunately, but we can at least have the numbers, which helps give us a better idea of the population in the area. They provide aid for rescue centers by teaching them how to reintroduce lorises that have been found or rescued and give them their best chance at survival. They also are heavily invested in their social media platforms. So they have big campaigns against the tickling of the lorises. When that was a trend, they released a lot of good material to try and combat the pet trade. And they have named 7 new species so far, which is pretty incredible considering before, before the 2000s, we didn't know much of anything about these animals. So my slogan was, I can't take credit for it, honestly. My wife said it, and it was great. Stand tall for something small. I think all of us could use a little cute faces in our life, and hopefully by getting people to realize how badly the international pet trade and the Southeast Asian traditional medicine market is affecting wildlife throughout the world would be greatly beneficial to everybody, and these little guys need our help. So I did not quite make it to 30 minutes, but thank you for sticking with me.